All right, thank you. I apologize, everybody, for the late start here. I will make it up by reading a very fast statement. Pursuant to the Governor's June 16, 2021 Act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, MGL Chapter 30A, paragraph 20, the Comprehensive Long Range Planning Committee will be using remote participation for this meeting. The audio of the meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the town's webpage within 24 hours in accordance with keeping the public informed of actions during this meeting. I would ask that all participants remotely attending this meeting, please state your name for identification purposes each time you speak throughout the meeting. This time I will take a roll call attendance and I will read down the list. And I will mention right off the bat that we have a change in our roles right away. Karen Apuzzo-Langton has been replaced on the planning board due to timing and from their original vote by Barbara Peedy. So Barbara Peedy, planning board, could you please say aye?
Aye.
Aye or here, I don't think so. And then Ben Sparrow, select board.
Here.
Brian Clancy let me know that he would not be able to make it. Bob Malone.
Bob Malone, present.
Thank you. Sooner Sessian.
Aye.
Frank Chamberlain. Lixie Carey.
Here.
Rich Rosenberry.
Here.
Anne-Marie Pilch. Steve Bigelow.
Here.
Thank you. Ken Henderson.
Present.
No longer on a beach. Matt Pavinsky.
Here.
All right. Stacy Raffi.
Present.
Thank you. Josh Mann.
Present.
Josh. Glenn Brown. Don't see. Nancy Barron. Okay. All right. So 1, 2. All right. We have a quorum. So as I stated off the top there, Karen will be giving way to Barbara Peedy on behalf of the planning board. We still have the 16 seats of 17 at the last meeting. We did not fill the DPW seat, and that's a decision that the board will or committee will continue to look at moving forward. So just before we get to number one, I just want to reference the fact that everybody here has been given access to a shared drive. We can talk about, or the group can talk about making that drive, a link available to the public through your webpage on the town's website. Additionally, I also sent out a couple thoughts from my suggestions to the group as you reorganize. Number one on the agenda here, if you are ready to do so, will be to elect a chair. So I sent out my thoughts, which could be used by the new chair as you see fit as a group. And if there's any questions on that, I will be with you this evening to answer them if anybody has questions for me. So with that, and a quorum of the group present, we'll go to number one on the agenda, which is to organize. A selection of the chair, vice chair, and clerk would be the recommended course of action from the town clerk. And so with that, obviously, we could have any discussion, or if somebody was ready to nominate somebody of the group. If we don't have that ready, then we can certainly come back to it later in the agenda. I see Ben Sparrow raising a hand.
Yes, I'd like to nominate Stacy Raffi to be chair.
Okay.
Right off the bat.
The nomination. We could have a second before discussion.
Second.
Second by Rich. So open to discussion. Stacy Raffi is chair. If anybody's not familiar with Stacy, she was recently the chair of the school committee and is representing the school committee on the group. Any discussion?
Yeah. Do we have to raise our hand or?
Sure.
So I guess the one thing I am wondering is whether it would be worthwhile to have a chair from a non sort of major role in town to sort of help drive this. So that's one question, I guess, for the group. Obviously, the select board, the school committee are major, sort of major components to the town in general. And I just wonder if it would make sense having someone who's not from one of those sort of major roles. And that's no disrespect to any of it's not any disrespect to the people itself. It's sort of just the roles and what we're trying to accomplish. And I don't know what others think, and if nobody else has sort of concerns or thoughts around it, we can move forward. But I wanted to bring that up.
Okay. I'll throw out one comment, but I'll open it up in case anybody else has further comment with the motion second for open for discussion at the moment.
Yep.
Go ahead, Ken.
I'm hearing also the other side is a chairperson that has already experienced the bigger picture beyond their own department, in that they've had to work with other departments to get their agenda accomplished. Maybe someone that's already experienced working across many levels. So yes, it could be individually driven by a particular component of our group. Yet at the same time, I feel someone that's had some experience dealing with a wider population or a wider variety of tasks could also be very well suited as chairperson. So it's kind of a either or. Just my comment.
Okay. So the comment that I was going to make as well on this discussion, obviously, is what we're currently doing, and I could have led off with this, but is a chair of the whole group, right, the 17-member committee. Within the recommendations that I had put forth, which, again, you can take or leave as you so choose, but one would be to break up into smaller subsets as you move quickly here, to divide and conquer, at which point, subcommittees themselves, if that's a direction that you go, would need individual leadership within that. And the position that we're looking at right now is specific to sort of driving the whole boat here. And so, that's a tricky thing to do. And so, certainly, I guess, that's my thought on it. There are opportunities for others to chair specific subsets is one thought as well. Anybody else have a thought on the open motion and second? Ben?
I would think it would be good to hear from Stacy whether she wants the position or not.
That'd be great.
Hi, Barbara. Thank you. I'm happy to do whatever the group needs. I am not chair of the school committee this year, so I have the bandwidth, if you will. But I am willing to do whatever we need to do. But I'd like to get this wrapped up tonight so we can get moving, because we have some stuff to do. So happy to do it. I chaired the committee through a pandemic, so I'm not afraid of it, but I'm open to whatever other people want to do.
And I would just make the reason I nominated Stacy for this is that couple of years ago, she's been trumpeting wanting something like this for quite some time. So she certainly impressed upon me the need for some strategic vision for the community. And so I know she's been championing this for a while. So I just, I certainly hear Sue's point of view. I understand who, wants to hear from me more often than Monday nights anyway. But I think, but I also think that having somebody who's had a little bit of experience in these kinds of roles, and being a chair is not the easiest thing sometimes, because it can be like herding cats. And she's her experience is certainly there with the school committee, and I know this is something that's important to her. So I personally I think she'd do a great job. So, but I understand if other people feel differently. So.
Yeah, just one thing, just to add, Ben, so thank you for that. That was helpful. But Travis, I just wanted to thank you for pulling together your thoughts. I thought they were incredibly helpful. And I like what you actually just said, is that obviously we need a chair to sort of run the whole thing, but then we have other positions where maybe we can have leadership roles in some of these other areas. So unless others have any comments, I'm okay to move forward.
Okay. Any other comments at the moment, or I'll go to a roll call vote? See people thinking, but I can't read people's faces on screen, so I'm going to go to a vote.
Yeah.
We do have to do a roll call vote for all of these, so you may choose to not do a vice chair tonight until you go into subcommittees, just to save yourself some time, but that's up to you. So I will start with a roll call vote on the motion and second to make Stacy Raffi chair of the Comprehensive Long Range Plan Committee. Barbara Peedy,
Yes.
Ben Sparrow.
Yes.
Brian Clancy is absent. Bob Malone.
Bob Malone, aye.
Sooner Sessian.
Yep.
Frank Chamberlain's not present. Lixie Carey.
Yes.
Rich Rosenberry.
Yes.
Emery Pilch is not present. Steve Bigelow.
Yes.
Ken Henderson.
Yes.
Matt Pavinsky.
Yes.
Stacy Raffi. You can abstain.
No, I'll say yes. It's fine. Yes.
Okay. Josh Mann.
Yes.
Glenn Brown is now present as of 7:42, so you can say present and your vote.
Present and yes.
And Nancy Barron is not present. Okay, so that motion carries, and so Stacy will be the chair. The agenda is here, but I'll let her take over. If you would like to now go into the vice chair and clerk, that's up to Stacy, and I'll be with you if there's any questions on the suggestions I sent forward.
So thank you, Travis. Thank you all. Good evening. And I'm really excited to be here with you. And let's get going. This is like 5 years that I've been asking for this. So let's go. I'm excited. Want to give me a thumbs up, thumbs down if you're ready to nominate a vice chair or a clerk. I haven't talked to any of you, so I don't know where people stand. But and the clerk will help write the meeting minutes because we're going to have those for all of our meetings. So if we want to wait till the next meeting, that's fine. How are people feeling? Ready to vote someone in? Not ready? Ben, that didn't help me. That was not a this or this. Ken, thank you. Ken says no. Anyone else with a no? Okay, good. Josh, no. Okay, so let's all take a little homework tonight. Let's go back and think about, does someone want to be the vice chair? And really that role is the person would moderate the meeting if I'm not here. Essentially, Travis, any other responsibilities for vice chair?
No, I think depending on where you guys go under number 2 with subcommittees and those things, right? I mean, it's another person who can help organize those types of activities, get staff participation, those types of things. But yeah, it's a number 2.
Okay. All right. So everyone takes, some time to think about it. I don't think it's going to be very time consuming or stressful, and, we'll talk about it next meeting. So before we actually jump into Travis's document, which I really thought was a really well done document, if you have not had a chance to go through it, I'd actually like to go through it tonight, sort of section by section, and sort of talk through it. Travis and I had a conversation after our last meeting, and I feel like my head is all over the place. There's so many thoughts about what we can do and how we can get there. In addition, we already have a lot of data. And if you look at the 1997 vision, if you look at the Downtown Visioning Committee's documents, if you look at some of the other planning that's sort of gone on throughout the town, there's a lot of similarities. There's a lot of consistency in what people are looking for. And honestly, we've actually achieved some of the things. So that's exciting. So it sounds like overall, in general, we're looking to, achieve sort of the same types of categories, if you will. So with that being said, let's go through the document. I pulled up another computer so that I can read off of that screen and then see you all on this screen. So if I'm turning in my head, I am actually using a second computer. So his first section was actually talked about creating a document. And his recommendation was envisioning the future of Holliston. Just from my own experience, the schools are currently working on the future, the vision of a future graduate. So this is something that's not new. A lot of towns are looking at visions for their towns, their students. And I do like that it's a document that we can post and refer to, and that other departments can refer to. So while we're not creating the vision, we're sort of coordinating the thoughts of the community and the community wishes into a vision. And we will present it at our meeting as well as eventually to town meeting. So I want to open the floor up, the room up for discussion on this, envisioning the future of Holliston. What are you people thinking about in terms of creating this document? Does it make sense? Is it something that is stressing you out and you're thinking, no way, I don't think we can do that? What are people thinking? And I'm not hosting the meeting, so if you can physically raise your hand, that would be helpful. Sue?
Yeah, so I have a couple thoughts. One, I thought that at least a lot of the data that we have currently is incredibly dated. And so I don't know that that's truly a reflection of Holliston today. And I think we have a lot of work to try to dig that out. I also think that people who tend to respond to the surveys that we've done have not been, I think they've been attended for what we think is pretty good for the town, but not really great overall. We're not really getting a true representation of the town. So I think we're going to have to figure out how to dig deep to really get out and get people's perspectives in very creative ways. Maybe thinking outside the box and trying to really understand what people who maybe aren't responding to surveys or not seeing the surveys or maybe not as plugged in to some of the things that many of us on this group are already plugged into. So I think that to me, I'm stressed out on the April timeframe because I think we have a lot to do before April.
Anyone else? Anyone? Who, Glenn?
So I think in terms of one of the things that this group needs to do before we go out and start canvassing the town and talking about surveys and whatnot is an education about what this group is and what we're trying to accomplish. And so by doing that, you create a more willingness for engagement or people seeking out engagement rather than maybe misleading people what these surveys are about, or there's resistance to the surveys or whatever the case may be. I think it's very important that when we create any type of documentation that it includes education about what it is we are trying to accomplish, the timeframes that we're trying to accomplish it in, and why we're trying to accomplish it.
Agreed. Ben?
Yeah, I have, I think, two comments that I'd like to make. I think one of the important things we need to do is to sort of see, where the gaps are, like where we want to probe. And I think along that line, I think it's important to sort of get people outside the box. Like I'll pick on parks for a second, but if we get people who are involved in parks and then Parks and Rec programming to talk about parks, they're sort of already there. We want to make sure that we're getting the people who aren't participating in those things to sort of see, like, okay, I mean, why aren't you? What do you need differently? Sort of thinking about things in that way. That's a very specific kind of example, but I just want to make sure that we think about, like, when we're talking about, say, seniors or schools, we're all in this community together and we all sort of coexist and there's a little bit of siloing and stuff like that. So we want to try to make sure that we're asking questions of everybody so we can get that feedback beyond just the populations that are participating in the particular questions. And the second thing I think we need to think about as we envision a future Holliston is I think that document is sort of the starting point, if you will, because I think what's important about that is that it's not just a presentation to town meeting, it's sort of a roadmap of what to do next. Like, what do we need to do to do these things. And I mean, granted, some of it's, we're not sitting here trying to write like, okay, here's the 20 bylaws we want to change or whatever. But I think we need to sort of have an understanding about the next steps is like, if from this, do we need to then let's generate a master plan, a real master plan as, defined by the state through the planning board, et cetera, or are there other particular changes that need to take place or things that we need to develop? For me personally, I think one of the things that I saw with something like, I'm going to say a dirty word, I apologize, but 555 Hopping Brook and the conversations therein was that I think some of the things that came up as being very personal and important to people, I think we should have already had some of those conversations beforehand and sort of understood where some of that stuff was coming from so that process could be a little more streamlined and a little bit more important. And I think that these sorts of exercises have to sort of give those values to the community, and then they change over time, and things that are important 20 years ago are not important now because the world changes and the world is not the same as it was. So I think it's important that we envision a future Holliston, and then we sort of say, like, here's the next steps to get there. And so I think it's just more than just saying, like, here's what we're doing, here's what we should do, like, here's what's the people want, but this is a sort of a way that we can get there. We might need other outside forces, or we might need some changes to take place.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
Thanks.
Good point. Other thoughts? So, as you and Glenn have made those points, I'm actually thinking that it might make more sense before we talk about the other items, which are all valid and important. I do think that we need to dive into this visions document, if you will. One of the things for me that I'd like to see us meet in person, whether it's in small groups or the entire group, because for me personally, I'm much more of a visual person, much more of a conversational person. I envision us sitting around a round table with whiteboards and sticky notes and, ideas and flowcharts and all stuff like that. So my first request is that eventually, in the next couple of meetings, that we could try and meet together in person so that we can sort of sit down and have this conversation and even literally map things out. I think also, for me, Zoom is not the most conducive method for meeting with 17 other people. I just, it's squares on the board that just keep moving. And for me, that's totally distracting. So that's one thing. But as Glenn and Ben were talking, I really do think we need to dive into what is it that we're doing, how do we educate, ourselves first, and then the community on what it is that we're trying to accomplish. Glenn, you have some really strong ideas about this, and I feel like, did you say that you have some work in this area in terms of strategic planning?
Not for a municipality, no. But in terms of planning, yes. And it's more along the lines of financial planning. And then also I did consulting for a short period of my life and in post-grad school. I realized that I need to do something better with my life. And I don't mean to offend any consultants that are out there. So with that, I just think that I think one of the challenges that we have, and again, I've only been in town since 2018, but I think one of the challenges that we have is getting bandwidth and getting breadth of people's input. And I think that if you bring something that is new, which is what this is, generate excitement about it and give a timeline in terms of, hey, we need your input. There's urgency here. This is why it's urgency, because we have this deadline. And you can't be like, oh, it's town meeting in April, because then people get back to it whenever. It's like we need to start formulating things in the next month or two. So this is, say the surveys go out in October. It's like you need to be very comprehensive about what it is that we're trying to do and the timeline we're getting it done, and what it is that we're looking to deliver back to the town for the individual to take the time to engage, to take the time to maybe do more than just a simple check the box, give some written feedback. And I think, that should be kind of our focus. I follow the town Facebook groups for various reasons. And I know they're very vocal people. They seem to be the same people. I could probably name about 35, 40 people, but there's over 15,000 in the town. And I just think that our goal should be to get that breadth of that 15,000.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Other thoughts?
So, Stacey, sorry, Stacey, I do think that we need some sort of a project plan. As I said earlier, I have concerns around just the April timing and I'm not sure what your ideas are in terms of like how frequently we meet, but what we can generate. But I think we have a lot of work to try to get to the 15,000 people in town. Because I don't think it's posting on Facebook, because you are only going to get that, certain subset that are there. And I think we have to figure out ways to capture people who may not be the norm of ways that, are communicated to currently. So I just think that we need some sort of a framework and a project plan to be able to say, these are all the steps for ultimately delivering by April.
All right, so let's start brainstorming them out, what we think they are. Do you think we should, as Travis suggested, break out into working groups? I really liked his approach on, there's sort of the data people, survey people, outreach people. Some of us are great at one area and not so great at the other. So I totally into the outreach, but not so much the survey piece. So do you want to have a discussion about that in terms of what types of groups maybe we should break out into? And then those groups can sort of maybe, have some conversation about what you think the next steps are for that particular area.
I have a question. Is the survey our only instrument that we're thinking of for gathering input?
So we haven't had a conversation, but I don't think that is something that people would say, yes, we're only going to do a survey.
Right.
I think there's a lot of different opportunities.
Then we just have to think about how that's all recorded. Like if we were to have a series of open meetings, which I know is hard in the age of COVID, but even, Zoom is not awesome, but it is a tool that people are sort of getting used to.
Yeah.
So I just want to, a survey is a very quantitative way of sort of collecting the data. But if we really are talking about being expansive, we have to find a way to capture almost that non-quantitative data and find a way to meld the two. So, and I'm not an expert in this, but I'm also, I love surveys. I'm happy to work on a survey, and I do like the idea about breaking up into small groups. So those are just all my thoughts.
Okay. So I guess maybe, do you want to throw out, we can sort of go around the room and you can share your area of interest, and maybe we can see if groups automatically come out of that. Barbara?
Shouldn't we do the discussion of our goals and objectives and have those very clear before we go another step farther?
Yeah. Yes, hold on. I want to look at the goals that we had written out.
Now, I wasn't here at your other meeting, so maybe you already have them, but
I'm going to pull up the enabling language.
Yes, please.
Okay. So on the town's webpage, you all have your website. It is under boards and committees. It is under comp long range planning. So if you go to that, this is where this is the language that created this group. And within that, obviously it says the things that you shall do. It does indicate that you will be in front of annual town meeting in 2022 to Sooner Sessions' point from earlier. That's kind of the timeline that was established in this. Although what this did was create you, and you are now your own entity. So, you can go in the direction that you see fit. But this is the language that established you. I'll replace Barbara, you here on the planning board. Otherwise, the list is here. And the Envisioning Future Holliston was in that. I think the thing that I was trying to say with that was simply, if you're going to be doing outreach, you might want to refer to yourself as a group called Envisioning Future Holliston, as opposed to the Comprehensive Long Range Plan Committee, or you may want to be the Clerk. But those are sort of the two natural options that I saw. And so it's it is the shalls right here that I would say are your defining goals. And then it's really, the way that you're going to approach it with all of the discussion that you've had so far. And this is also one thought too, obviously you can put anything you want on this page, right? We could use this as a landing page for people to come. We could have the Google Drive that has the past documents that we've been uploading for your perusal. We could make that or you could choose as a group the documents that you want, residents to be able to come and look at and give you feedback on, the shortcomings, those types of things. You can use this webpage however you see fit. And yeah, so sorry.
No, thank you. Keep that up there for a minute, Travis, because I
see Glenn's hand up as well.
Reading it. Yeah.
I see Glenn's hand up, Stacy. I'm not sure if you can see the whole screen.
You know what? I can't see those.
Yeah, so I think I'll have to pull down the share screen if you want to see the. So anybody can obviously pull up this website at home. This is your standing website. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. So yeah, Glenn was raising his hand.
Glenn?
So if we can change the name to Envisioning Future Holliston, we should do that, number one. Number two, for those of you that have run for elected positions and create awareness about your brand, your identity, the same thing needs to occur with this committee before we send surveys out. And so when I think about, we can obviously talk about the goals, as Barbara said, and defining what that is, but that needs to be defined and that needs to be sprayed out different ways, mailings, whatever the case may be. I know it takes budget to do that, but again, those of you who have done it on a shoestring budget for elected positions have ways of doing it. We'd love to have the insights, and I think that we should take that type of approach before we send anything out to build awareness about what it is that we're doing.
Yeah, definitely brand awareness. So before I have you make that motion, Glenn, about the name of the committee.
Oh, I'm making a motion? Okay.
Is there any discussion, if people thought about a different name? I honestly have not put a lot of thought into it myself. And I just keep saying planning committee when I talk to other people. So I'm not the best one to make a suggestion. What are people's thoughts on a name?
I like it.
Yeah, I like what Glenn said too. We would add committee on the end though, right?
I don't think you need
Or do we need it? No? Okay.
Not necessarily, no.
Okay.
You're a committee for the town clerk's purposes of how you operate. The name, you can go with whatever you want. And then the other thing we could do, as the FinCom and some other groups have, is a blanket email address, right? So if that was the name you wanted, for example, we could put together Envisioning Future Holliston as the email address, have all of your individual email addresses. If a resident emails that, it could go directly to all of you as a group. We could set that up on the back end as well. And then that gives you, a sort of communication tool. If you are going to spread information, say you want to get in touch with us, here's a way to do it. It's once you have that, we can set that up on the back end.
So Glenn, you want to make that motion?
Sure. Motion to change the name of this committee to Envisioning Future Holliston.
I'll second that. Oh, sorry, Ben, go ahead.
No,
Moved by Glenn, seconded by Sue. Sue, do you mind me calling you Sue, or do you?
Yeah, no, of course. That's fine.
All right, roll call vote. Matt Pavinsky,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Bob,
Bob Malone, aye.
Sue,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Ben,
yes.
Joshua. Do you prefer Joshua or Josh?
Josh is fine, but yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
Lixie,
Yes.
Rich,
Yes.
and Stacy. Yes. So we unanimously are changing our name. Congratulations, team. We are now Envisioning Future Holliston.
I don't need a vote, but would you like an email address to, as I described it?
Yeah, I think so. Does everyone want to give a thumbs up, thumbs down?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'll get that going.
Thank you. Travis, did you have us set up to meet until 8:30? I just want to be mindful of people's time and whatnot.
It was requested that we keep it to an hour. And there were some people who didn't prefer 7:30 to begin with. I was trying to make everything work together. So yeah, if we could call it at 8:30.
Okay, so what I'd like to do is just, Steve, I'll grab you in 1 second. I just want to wrap up with in terms of figuring out next meeting, and then we can, our next meeting, we will focus on, goals of envisioning future Holliston and how we can brand ourselves and market ourselves around the town. Steve?
Okay. So a lot of good ideas I'm hearing here, and given that we're 2 meetings in and we're coming to the end of this meeting, can I just suggest that we just focus on the survey with the time we have left? I think that's, from what came out of last meeting, I think it was clear that we said the survey will drive all of our work. So I would suggest a goal for tonight be maybe we even break into groups right now to talk about this survey. Potentially, I'm willing to volunteer myself for creating the survey subgroup. Maybe we have a ways to disseminate the survey subgroup. But I think we got to get moving on this immediately. We can't really wait any longer. I think we immediately need to talk about this survey now so that we get on it. So I'm volunteering myself to be on creating the survey subgroup.
Does anyone want to join Steve on that? Let's see. Anybody else?
I think we need to remember that there are other people too that aren't here. So
Yep. And I'll include
Reach
that
out
in
to
a
them.
follow-up email to everyone. And I would like to see an outreach group, if you will, as well, because I think we can survey people not just by a survey, whether it's online or on paper, but also conversation. So I'd love to see some outreach. Matt?
Yeah, I'd be happy to help with that. Or,
Sue, Ken. Okay.
I do think there's a survey. There's a whole bunch of different ways that we want to do this. So yeah, I'm all for that.
Ken? Did you have your hand up?
I would concur what Matt said. I'd like to be involved with how we may go beyond the survey as not the only tool, but through various called smaller meetings or ways to communicate our need for more varied input by, designing ways to find groups that are, we'll say, underrepresented.
So I'm going to send out a Google Doc, and this way people can put in their interest areas, suggestions, et cetera, because I think that will also help, and it will just dump it right into a spreadsheet for me. So with that being said, can we just talk a minute about meeting as all of us for the next time? I know we're in the middle of heavy vacation time. I know that Matt has Wednesday evenings is not available due to a class that he's in till 7:30. So if Wednesdays are too tough, is there another time that works for people? Should we alternate between evening, morning? I don't know. You guys share with me, because I have a little bit more flexibility than others with my job. Any thoughts?
I just need to do nights. I can't do during the day.
I agree with that as well.
Okay. So I think Wednesdays are the one night when there's not a select board meeting, a FinCom meeting, or a school committee meeting. I'm not sure when planning board meets. I don't know if it's
Thursdays.
You meet on Thursdays too. Okay.
Yep.
So, okay.
And I'm not on FinCom anymore, Stacey. So I mean, that may, Ben, I don't know if you go to the meetings. I don't know if others do, but anyway, I just wanted to make sure that if you were talking about me for Tuesdays, that doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
Steve just mentioned it the last time too, and I didn't do it. I did it by email, but we could create a Google Doc for scheduling as well. I looked at Doodle, which Josh just threw in there, and I didn't want to put all your emails in Doodle, but it is pretty commonly used. So that's another thought, to just get something scheduled.
Are you all comfortable with me putting your emails in Doodle? Because I can do a Doodle. Okay, so let's meet based off of Doodle. My expectation and hope is that we could meet in person next time. I just think it's a little bit more conducive, getting to know each other, and then we can break off into smaller groups and Zoom, as necessary. And I know that, we're coming into flu season, so we're going to be more careful, et cetera. But for our next meeting, I definitely would like to just meet in person. And we have, plenty of spaces in town that are safe for us to all physically be in one room. Okay, so I will send out a doodle for our next meeting. I will send out a Google form for sort of subgroups and areas that you'd like to focus on. Is there anything else? Glenn?
Stacey, what is the frequency we're thinking of?
I think it's going to depend on the working group. I think as a frequency for the entire group, maybe
Correct.
Once a month. And that will leave time throughout the month for the subgroups to work together. That's my initial thought, but I honestly, I don't know. It's up to all of us. So, thoughts. Did anyone have any thoughts? Any preconceived notions when you joined the committee, or maybe you were forced to join the committee? I don't know. Were there any preconceived notions or ideas for how long we'd meet or frequency?
Mm-hmm.
No. Ken?
I think it does hang on the task at hand. If your committee is laying the groundwork for some other committee work to happen, then yes, you'll probably meet more often early on. Whereas if you're preparing, we'll say, the outcomes, well, then feeding off of what other committee work has accomplished, the outcome part would then be more focused, and they would, I'll say, work harder. They'll have more reason to meet more frequently. So it's going to vary on the task that your committee is charged with.
Yeah.
Does that ring true to most of us?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think we should all get together maybe once a month, just as a summary of make sure everybody's on task, but let the committees then schedule their own meetings, and it'll just be easier that way, because some of us may need to meet more frequently than others.
Right. Okay. Glenn?
So just as a question though, as a group right now, are we comfortable to wait until meeting together as a group where we are at this point in time until September? And I don't mean that we go bi-weekly till April, but maybe in this one instance, we do put another date in the calendar in August and then go monthly.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
If I could ask for the 25th, I actually have a break. But if you want to meet sooner, we can do that too.
Okay. Is there any chance people could meet on Thursday the 19th? And I know that's out of our Thursday, our Wednesday timeframe. I'm just, I planned to be away that last week in August the 21st. And I plan to really disconnect, or at least that was my hope. And I'm also going to be away the 15th through the 18th.
I'm okay with that date. That works for me.
Matt, I saw Matt shake his head.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if there's a planning meeting that night or not at this point. But if there is, I will go to that.
Right, all right. Is next week too early?
I can't do next week, but I'm one person, so I can't do next week in person. I could do it remotely, but I'm away.
I think Glenn's idea is good, though. We can do that with the doodle and look for 2 meetings between now and then once you're ready to go monthly. And so the other thing, just to do really quickly, if you don't mind, Stacy, I just wanted to make sure everybody's comfortable and everybody is clear on your access to the Google Drive. Do you mind if I just pull that up, Stacy?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so the Google Drive, you should all have received an email. What you'll see when you get in there, I can't tell if you can see what I can see here. So, all right, so I just actually been updating as I get them. Some of the more recent reports, we have a few coming in September from the reports that have been commissioned recently. The most recent one is a Mass DOT report on all of the streets and sidewalks, some of which are state-owned. That was just put in. I also put in 495, put together some metrics on the town. These things are updated. As Sue said, there's some very outdated things in here, but it's really to give you all a sense of what we have access to. The 1999 master plan is I think a pretty good way to look at where we have holes in what we have. And that might be a good way for, a survey group to approach it. But that is the Google Drive where all these things are being shared. As I get them, I'll put them in the master document that lists them all out. We'll number them so that you can sort of look at it. If people see things they don't understand, they have questions, they can reach out to me, go through the chair, and I'll send out the full email. And then the only thing I want to mention on the subgroups is I will send out from the town clerk sort of how it will go, right? Obviously, you can have conversations with people outside of open meeting. If you're doing things and making decisions, even if you are a subcommittee, we should probably be talking about, the difference and when you should be posting even a subcommittee meeting, just to have access to the public if appropriate. So I'll send all that out separately as well, Stacey.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. At this time, does anyone have any other business you want to discuss, something to put on a future agenda item?
I just had a question on minutes. Do we need them from last meeting and this meeting? And if so, will we have them?
Yes, I will do the minutes from the first and second meeting, and I will send those out before your next meeting.
Okay. Thanks, Travis. Sorry you have to do them, but
no, that's okay.
I just wasn't sure what the protocol was, and I wanted to make sure we knew.
So Stacy and friends, this is Bob Malone. I have 2 observations that I think I'm probably stating the obvious that you all understand, but let me make those observations. The first is, as was pointed out, the 97 vision and the 99 master plan are over 20 years old, and they were of a different time and even of a different community and a different population. So I think we need to be cautious about the directions those point us in, even though if you read the enabling information, it asks to rely on that, and I raise a caution about that, and I think that was also also raised earlier. The second thing is, as Travis points out, one of the, it seems to me, the immediate tasks in order to talk about constructing a survey and considering outreach methods is to determine the information that's needed. That's the starting point. What is it that we're gonna ask, and how do we begin to discern and divine what those areas are that we need to think about getting information for.
Thank you. Any other thoughts?
This is Lixie Carey. It's chair of the Open Space Committee. I'll tell you one thing that I really would, I mean, and one of the reasons why I'd like to be on the survey group is the town actually is overdue in doing its open space and recreation plan. So I'm actually hoping I have I'm very obviously committed to this group. But for me, there's a bunch of stuff from our perspective, and I think maybe that's what will happen in the next meeting. The different groups that we all represent will bring our own aspects together to start to really figure out what do we want to ask about. But from my perspective, I mean, I represent the Open Space Committee, so I know we're due for doing a survey anyway. So that's what I'll be looking to put in there.
Great. Steve? Did you have your hand up?
I was just going to say, in order to maximize our time next meeting in a few weeks, do we want to, before we leave today, maybe set ourselves a goal? Is there a goal that we're shooting for to come ready with for the next meeting so that we can kind of hit the ground running? Mm-hmm. I asked the group that.
Stacey, can I say something?
Yeah, please.
Sorry, this is Ben. I think just to piggyback on what Bob said, I think the thing that we probably should do most of all is to sort of figure out what directions we need to head in so we can make sure that, we know exactly. I think those previous documents are going to give us a good roadmap. And I think one of the things I want to do is to sort of see what other towns do, not because I want their answers, but because I just want to know, like, what's the blueprint they're using so we can sort of see, like, how they approach these kinds of effort, so we can say, like, these are the kinds of things that we want to have answered, and then we can rely on each other to figure out who to get those answers from, whether it's surveys, conversations, demographic data from census, whatever, things like that. So that's my 2 cents.
Steve, you asked the question. I'm going to ask it back to you. Did you have something in mind for a goal?
I mean, not especially. I go back to the survey. I think, we've talked about the tight timeline we're on here, and to me, it just seems the survey is really the big thing that we need to get out. So if we're thinking about the survey committees that we may want to offer or serve on, I think that's a good idea. But like I said, that's why I was asking the group too.
So the one thing I would say is I really would encourage people to read at least the 97 plan and the downtown visioning one for sure. Because like I said, when I read them, I really saw some similarities, and I think at least brings out some general areas that we can consider in the survey. And I'm also thinking, from an outreach piece about, sharing that to the community and saying, here's some areas, what are we missing? What do you think about this area? So let's, for homework, if you will, really think about vice chair, clerk, goals, and reading those, at least those 2 documents, just to get a feel for, what has been done in areas that we think are important. Travis?
I would just say this is something Glenn and I had talked about, right? So as an example, in all of your service areas that you're familiar with, it might be helpful to think of when you're talking about a survey or you're talking as a group, right? The questions that came to the EDC that Glenn and I talked about essentially were, and they were kind of 555 related, as Ben put his finger on the button earlier, was like, what is the town looking for in terms of economic development opportunities? what is its stance on, housing in X, Y, and Z specific categories. And, the planning town planner will send answers to those questions from time to time, and they change over time, but there's always general overtones to them, right? So some of those are the types of things, the questions that you get that sometimes you wish you had answers to, those might be the best way to put them together to say, somebody asked this question and I didn't have an answer to it, and I don't think the town has an answer to it. And from your service areas, put those together. I mean, that might be the quickest approach to kind of, and then once you get into the survey, I'll give you the tools that we have, and you can determine if it's going to get you to the point you need to be at. I mean, we just did a Google survey for 260 Woodland. We got 600 people responding to it. Stacy was very helpful in getting the word out on it. 600 people is pretty good to Sue's point earlier, compared to other ones we've done. But is 600 good enough for what you're looking for? I don't know. Is the Google, platform that, and I can show you what we got from that. You can determine if that's the right thing for you. We can look at other options. But, if you look at the questions that you don't have answers to in your service area, that might be the best way to approach it.
One quick question, Travis. Do we have access as a town to someone who does translations, language translations?
Oh, no.
Okay. That's.
We have in the schools, I believe we have some Spanish speaking opportunities. At the police department, we do as well. In terms of this, I don't have anybody I would task with it.
Okay.
Could you use technology, Stacy? I mean, Google has it, Amazon has it. I think Microsoft has it as well.
Yeah.
And then maybe just have someone who is speaking just to read it at least. They wouldn't have to translate it, but they could read it to make sure it makes sense.
Yeah. I knew we had some resources on the school side. I was just curious on the town side. Glenn, did you have a question? Oh, okay. All right. So I know that I have a busy day tomorrow, so I promise I will get everything to you by Friday. I just need to give myself tomorrow to get some stuff done during the day, and tomorrow night I will work on it. So you'll hear from me by Friday. So I don't have a next meeting date just yet. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Moved by Steve. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Sue. All in favor? Matt?
Aye.
Barbara?
Aye.
Bob? Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you, Bob.
Aye.
Thank you. Sue?
Aye.
Ken?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Josh?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Glenn?
Aye.
Lixie?
Aye.
Rich?
Aye.
And Stacy. It is 8:34. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you all. Have a great couple of weeks until we see each other next.
Thank you.